My TNA Bound for Glory 2011 pay-per-view review. The pay-per-view just went off there a little while ago. And as far as my thoughts on this show, going into it, I was expecting something pretty good from TNA. I wasn't expecting a spectacular or an excellent show. I was expecting just a good show from TNA. And I would say it didn't go in the realm of being a terrible show from them, but a number of their booking decisions on this pay-per-view, especially the 3 matches I was looking forward to the most on this pay-per-view that I thought was going to be making this pay-per-view pretty good. 2 of them didn't get enough time. That's Jerry Lynn and RVD. And then AJ Styles and Daniels, not only did that get not enough time, but it had a terrible ending. And then the main event, which was Kurt Angle versus Robert Roode for the TNA title. I was expecting something great from that. And the match-wise, it was going on excellent. I really enjoyed the match. I was on the edge of my seat, was really liking it. Then TNA had to ruin it with the ending of it, which was 2 things I had a problem with, which was Angle retaining the title. I think it would have been perfect for Robert Roode to win the title here, but for one of TNA's biggest pay-per-views, they ended in a fashion where, Kurt Angle Kurt Angle is a heel, so it kind of makes sense, him winning and him retaining the title in a heelish fashion. But for one of the biggest pay-per-views and all the momentum Robert Roode had going in this pay-per-view was just terrible, with him hitting the Angle slam, and then with Robert Roode having his arm under the rope and Kurt Angle holding onto the ropes, and that's how he retains the title. It's a terrible thing to do now. If it was a smaller pay-per-view from TNA, that ending, would probably get a lot of people probably would still dislike it, but it wouldn't be as bad as this is TNA's biggest show, and that's how they end what TNA calls their biggest show of the year. Some of the undercard wasn't too bad, and really the only thing I would say that was terrible on here was probably the women's match. That was just what it is most of the time in TNA. And Hogan and Sting wasn't a good match, but it turned out to be a little better than I was expecting. I was expecting something really bad, and it was at least watchable. And the match, had a lot of build up to it. It made sense why it took place, and the ending of it wasn't too bad, I would say, with Hogan turning face and not being with Immortal anymore. That's something you probably could have expected seeing going into the show, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. So let me get into my review for the show. The first matchup was the X Division title match with Brian Kendrick and Austin Aries for the X Division Championship. This match is pretty much like the matches they've been having. They haven't had terrible matches. It's just been decent matches, somewhat close to good, but just pretty decent. Some good back and forth action. And Austin Aries retains the title after hitting the Brainbuster in this match. And I would say about a 2.5 star match. Next matchup was RVD versus Jerry Lynn in the Full Metal Mayhem match. A number of good spots in here. Obviously, they did a number of stuff with the chairs, ladders, and tables in this match. So a number of good things in here. I enjoyed the match, but I thought the match kind of could have been given a little more time, and there were a few spots in the match where Jerry Lynn did kind of mess up in the match. They did one spot where Jerry Lynn was gonna where he's doing basically a sunset flip power bomb to RVD through a ladder. He didn't hit the ladder, pretty much, power bombed onto the floor. Now, and maybe 1 or 2 other botches in the match. But these 2 didn't have a terrible match. Some stuff I did enjoy. Obviously, like always with RVD and Jerry Lynn matches, RVD is always the one that goes over. He actually wins this match after hitting the Van Terminator, where he goes coast to coast. He had Jerry Lynn on that side with the ladder, pretty much slammed him and hit it with the Van Terminator, and then after that pretty much puts a ladder on top of him, pins him, and RVD wins that match. Wasn't a bad match. I was just expecting a little more from it, and maybe a little more time should have been given to it. But considering, Jerry Lynn, Jerry Lynn still kind of got it in the ring. He's a little past his prime, but considering all that, it wasn't a terrible match. It was actually pretty good, but like I said, I was expecting just a little more, and it should have been given a little more time. About 3 stars, maybe even 3 1/4. Next matchup was Samoa Joe versus Matt Morgan versus Crimson, which this match actually, I was expecting it to be probably one of the worst matches tonight. It actually wasn't too bad. It started off with Crimson and Matt Morgan pretty much doubling up on Samoa Joe, ganging up on him, attacking him. Then obviously they started fighting each other after both of them were trying to get the victory. Then you saw some really good work between them two with each other, Matt Morgan and Crimson. Joe looked very good in this match. The end of the match comes when Matt Morgan was in the corner. He was about to do a move. Crimson pretty much snuck the victory, hit a spear on Samoa Joe, hit 1, 2, 3. Crimson wins the match, so Crimson is still undefeated in TNA. Wasn't as bad as I expected with them three. Joe looked very good in that match, and Matt Morgan and Crimson actually worked very well with each other. So, pretty decent match. 2 and 1 4 stars, a whole lot better than what I was expecting. Then the next matchup was Bully Ray versus Mr. Anderson in a Falls Count Anywhere match, or a Philadelphia Falls Count Anywhere match. These two did a lot of good stuff. They obviously battled outside the ring a lot. They did a number of things on the up on the stage, hit each other with the mic. Bully Ray got himself busted open with that. Then they went backstage, brawled a little bit back there, attacked each other. And then the ending of the match I thought was real good, which was Mr. Anderson had Bully Ray. He had Bully Ray on a table. He went to the top to do a senton bomb through it. The table didn't break, but even though the table didn't break, and that was probably going to be the ending of the match, he kind of saved it, picked Bully Ray up, hit the mic check through the table, which actually probably looked better than what the senton would have looked like. So he kind of saved it right there. So Mr. Anderson wins this match with a mic check through the table. I would say about 2 3/4, maybe even 3-star match. Next matchup was the Knockouts title match with Velvet Sky, Madison Rayne, Mickie James, and Winner. And just your typical women's match here. During this match, Karen Jarrett was out there. Karen Jarrett was out there as referee. And towards the end of the match, Winner spit the mist into Karen Jarrett's eyes. That pretty much got her out of there. Then Tracy came out there. She pretty much took over it. And Velvet Sky wins the Knockouts title here. So Velvet Sky is the new TNA Knockouts champion. And just your typical, TNA Knockouts match right here. About 1.5 stars, maybe 1 3/4 stars. Next matchup was the biggest disappointment of the night, especially since I'm a huge fan of both of them. This was Christopher Daniels versus AJ Styles in an I Quit match. It was given about 10 minutes. The time they were given, they were doing great. They a lot of great back and forth action, a lot of good mat work, and everything. Everything was clicking. Then they chose to end it in a very terrible way, which was AJ Styles. He grabbed a screwdriver, was threatening to use it on Christopher Daniels. Christopher Daniels said, no, don't use it, and I quit. And that was the end of the match. So, Daniels, being the heel he is, he just did not want it to continue, and that's the way the match ends. Terrible way to end an I Quit match. And it was probably, for an I Quit match, it was really bad. For the action they did before that part, it was fairly good, but they were only given they were given definitely less than 10 minutes in here, and the ending was god-awful. And then the end of the match, AJ Styles going up the ramp. Christopher Daniels attacked him and hit the Angel's Wings on the stage. So obviously the feud's continuing. As far as the match, even with the ending, I would probably give the match, just because the ending was so bad and wasn't given enough time. Especially for an I Quit match, it was really terrible. I would probably give it, 2 1/4 stars, and maybe 2.5. Some people might even say that's being a little too generous, considering these two wrestlers and what they could have done, and just TNA booked this in a very poor fashion, that match. The next after this, Jarrett comes out there, gets on the mic, calls Jeff Hardy out there, and then him and Jeff Hardy pretty much get into a brawl. Security comes out there, breaks it up. Then Jeff Hardy keeps breaking through security, attacking Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett tries to attack him. Pretty much a back and forth brawl, and obviously the security breaks them up. So at the next pay-per-view, we'll probably be seeing a Jeff Hardy versus Jeff Jarrett match, and that was pretty much what they did there. That was probably given about 10 minutes, that segment, which consider going into the pay-per-view, we knew Jeff Hardy was going to be here, and we knew they were going to do something like this. So it's not like they just did it to waste time. So at least they kind of advertised it beforehand, and Jeff Hardy, everyone knew he was going to be a part of the pay-per-view. Then the next matchup was probably the one thing a lot of people thought was going to be a really terrible match, which I'm not saying it was a good match, but I was expecting a whole lot worse from what it was. This was Hulk Hogan versus Sting. Obviously, the way this match went with the rules, Sting won this match. Dixie Carter has control of TNA back, and if Hogan would have won, him and Bischoff still have control of TNA. That's the way the rules of this match were, as far as the stipulations for it. For these two, it actually wasn't a terrible match, all in consideration. You know, Hogan really cannot take a bump. His back hurts him so much, and you know he just had surgery not that long ago. Sting and him, considering what I was expecting something close to Warrior and Hogan from Halloween Havoc '98. So that's how my expectations were. So some people might say I'm probably being a little too fair with this match, but that's how my expectations were for this match. So that's how bad I was expecting, and it didn't turn out that bad. Wasn't given too much time, and did what it was supposed to do with, you know, Dixie Carter getting control back with TNA, and the whole storyline with that is over. Obviously, Immortal's going to still be around. Sting wins this match. Hogan taps out. And then after the match, Sting's getting beat down by Immortal. Then the crowd starts chanting Hogan. Obviously, you knew what was going to happen here. Hogan turns on Immortal, so Hogan's now back as a face, which I think is something good to do right there. So Immortal's still going to be around, so it'll be interesting what they do with this. Obviously, Hogan and Sting are back with each other, and Hogan's a face. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. Hopefully they don't, you know, have Hogan hog too much of the spotlight in TNA. Hopefully they just kind of keep him to the side a little bit, because I don't think anyone wants to see him wrestle yet again. But considering how bad I was expecting, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't the worst match, and I think the women's match was a whole lot worse than this. This was at least watchable, I would say, and consider and you put everything in consideration, it wasn't as bad as what I was expecting. 1 3/4 stars. Then after this was the main event. This was Robert Roode versus Kurt Angle for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. Like I said earlier, this match was great. I was really enjoying it. I was on the edge of my seat. Really enjoyed it. It was a great match. Good back and forth action. A lot of good reversals with the crippled crossface and the ankle lock. Them two worked very well with each other right there. Saw some good back and forth action. Was given enough time, I thought. And then the thing that kind of hurt it was the ending of the match, where Kurt Angle, he hit the angle slam. Angle holds onto the ropes. Robert Roode had his arm under the rope, so you know the ref didn't see that, so no rope break. So Angle retains the championship. Obviously, they'll play this off on Impact, where you know Robert Roode will say that he did not lose the match since his arm was under the rope, and then he'll probably get another rematch at the next pay-per-view. But they should have given Robert Roode the title right here. Now, some people might say, you know, Robert Roode's just a tag team performer, and it would have been maybe a little too early for in his single runs to be given the World Championship. And I think it would have been perfect right here. You know, Robert Roode's been in your company for a long time. He's been known and just recently as a tag team performer, but it's really had a lot of momentum going in this pay-per-view. And he's a homegrown talent, which is the one thing I think a lot of us, you know, fans of TNA has been watching from the beginning, want TNA to do, is push their homegrown talent, which they failed again yet right here. I think they will give Robert Roode the title, but hopefully they don't pull Samoa Joe with Robert Roode, where they wait so long for him to get the title. By the time he gets the title, no one's going to care. I think it just would have been perfect on here. Even with the ending, it was still a good match. I'm still going to give it probably 3.5 stars, because it was the best match of the night, and they were having a hell of a match. Just the ending was the thing that really hurt it. I mean, even if Robert Roode wouldn't have won, and they would just had a fair, clean ending, Angle hits the angle slam, they don't do the bullshit thing with the foot or arm under the rope like they did, I would have even took that a little better than this. Just, I hate when, companies do this. WWE and TNA have done this year, where, the match ends like this, and obviously they'll play this off, and the wrestler will get the rematch next month. And even for that, like I said, I'm giving it 3.5 stars. Hell of a match. Really enjoyed the match, but the ending hurt it. And like I said, I think Robert Roode should have been given the title. As far as the pay-per-view, since, some of the stuff with the 3 matches I was mainly looking forward to, they kind of booked a number of them poorly. And the undercard, I would say, kind of helped a little bit. It wasn't as bad. It was really the first half of the show. was going on, you know, on a steady course, kept getting a little better after each match. Second half of the pay-per-view kind of dragged the show down a little bit. So I'll probably give the show about, you know, a 6.5, maybe a 6.75, because there was some good wrestling on here. It was just the booking that hurts it, which is something I think a lot of people say about TNA a lot of the time, which is TNA has the talent. They have the performers that can perform great in the ring, but TNA does not know how to book a pay-per-view from top to bottom in a way where they don't do some screwy booking, which they've shown on this pay-per-view, which was, you know, built as TNA's biggest pay-per-view of the year. So yeah, that's it for my TNA Bound for Glory 2011 pay-per-view review. All right, peace.